So first one, let's see how to do this. I'm going to do the more complicated one. So let's say I want to consider number one, the impact of a change in inflation rate on balance of trade. Suppose Singapore's, you all know pi stands for inflation, correct? Pi is inflation. Singapore's inflation rate rises relative to other countries. Okay? So I'm going to talk about the first one here. So this dot, this one, same. Singapore's inflation rate rises relative to other countries. So what happens? Okay. And impact on your balance of trade. Okay. So this is what we're gonna examine. Okay, how would this affect your balance of trade? Yeah. So one of you mentioned exports will be more expensive. Yeah, very good. So let's see. We talk about X first, X. When Singapore's inflation rate rises relative to other countries, maybe there was a minimum wage introduced in Singapore. Everything is now more expensive. Okay? There's a minimum wage. Wages are more higher. Everything that rolls out from your factory doors are now more expensive, including the things you sell to other countries. So this means your exports will become costlier, which means less price competitive. Okay, our exports become more expensive. Second, okay, this means that PX will increase. This one you know, the law of demand says when the price goes up, the quantity demanded falls. Yes? Price up, quantity demanded should drop. So what happens to X overall? Where X is P times Q. Can you see you don't know what happens to X? Unless you assume something from DDSS. There is a certain concept that links the change in price to the change in quantity. Yes, in Chun, you were saying discuss PED here. Absolutely. If you assume PEDX exceeds 1, okay, PEDX exceeds 1, maybe because there are substitutes, other countries selling similar substitutes. So we sell electronics, Taiwan, China, South Korea, they sell electronics as well. Okay? So if other countries sell substitutes, the quantity demanded should drop more than proportionately. So in other words, QX double arrows. It drops more than proportionately. Okay? And when this happens, overall, X falls. Export revenue falls. Questions? Follow. Okay, so this is very interesting because we actually had to make use of price elasticity of demand. It's like a ghost that follows us from J1 to J2. Okay, now let's look at what happens in the case of imports. Import expenditure. Okay, for import expenditure, first, Singapore's inflation rate goes up, maybe minimum wage in Singapore. Do you agree that whatever you buy in from Malaysia, from China, from Japan, the price is the same? Inflation is only in our case. For other countries, no change in price. So this means that with Singapore goods becoming more expensive, okay, With Singapore goods becoming more expensive, now I'm gonna say imports appear relatively cheaper. Okay? And this results in a rise in demand for imports. Okay, as a student who's in the waiting room, I don't recognize this student. Spin the bottle, spin the a certain word. So I don't know who this is. Let me just text. Hi. Okay. So there's a higher increase in demand for imports. Okay. And what happens next? Okay, straight away, import expenditure rises. Notice no PEDM. There's no need for PED here. Because this is basically a change in the price of a related good. If you go back to DDSS, a change in the price of related goods is a shift in your demand. It's not a movement along the demand curve. Okay, so critically, this is a change in quantity demanded, this is a change in demand. Shift in the demand curve, no need for elasticities. Okay? Now, questions. Yes. Yeah, no problem. Imports, right? Okay, so if we go back to DDSS, whenever you have a movement along the demand curve, we call this a change in quantity demanded. Okay? And what causes the movement? Oh, it can only be due to a change in price. Okay? So the price changes, and then consequently, you have a change in quantity demanded. Okay? Good. But in this case, whenever you get a shift of the entire curve, we call this a change in demand. And we all know what causes your demand to change. It could be a change in taste and preference, a change in income, a change in the price of substitutes. Here, a change in the price of substitutes. So now we're looking at a change in demand. Okay, so Ethan, in this case, we are talking about the factors that affect balance of trade, and we are bringing elasticities back into the picture. Okay, so this is what I've just gone through. You can take a look.